Excellent. So, Carl, we'll kick off with you as the everyone has seen everyone else on this panel. If you'd like, just do a quick introduction.
I'm Carl Lyon from the QOE. Some of you know us as a practitioner-led think tank. We've had input from 250 of Europe's top brands over the last 10 years or so. We now have a light touch consultancy that uses that knowledge. We are focused on customer experience, stroke people experience, digital experience and multi-region experience.
Thank you very much. Obviously, as you haven't done a presentation, perhaps it would be good to start with you and maybe just give us some of your sort of thoughts from what you've seen this morning.
Okay. Having listened and been involved with customer experience now for 10 years, things are definitely maturing, and they're maturing at different rates within different industries, and also within different companies within different industries. So it's a very fragmented, on the maturity model side of things, it's very fragmented. So you've got some leading banks in some areas, like Metro Bank that was mentioned earlier, but now they're going to be perhaps surpassed by Atom Bank that are coming on as digital. In the telco, in your sector, you've had perhaps in the UK O2 leading things. It's a really changing and emerging way of looking at running a business. And certainly the digital agenda is driving everything. Everything we've talked about, silos within companies, within organisations, information silos, knowledge silos, the digital agenda is definitely changing the game from an internal perspective and from the customer perspective. I often say improving customer experience has got nothing to do with customers. We have to listen to them, understand what their needs, but it's what we do internally that makes a difference. And the digital agenda is driving some really good behaviour. Philippe, as the operator on stage, do you agree with that the digital agenda is driving change at Orange or not?
Yeah, definitely. I think digital is a way for us to make it simpler for the customer. If we can summarize why digital, because this is the demand of the market, this is the only way to make it simpler for the customer and so to transform the company to make it simpler internally.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's a purely internal transformation to deliver this promise.
Okay. One of the other kind of big trends which we haven't really talked about at all, is particularly prevalent in the UK but across Europe as well, is this merger and acquisitions stuff which is going on. I'm really interested to find out from all of you. It's often the way that with mergers and acquisitions, some things get left behind or don't get done as well or as quickly as they should do. Do you think that the mergers and acquisitions that we're seeing is going to hold back customer experience and the transformations that telcos want to make? Who'd like to answer that one first? Adrian, do you want to have a question?
Could go first. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that, clearly there's a wave of consolidation. A lot of it's in market. And what we're seeing sort of underpinning that really is actually fixed mobile convergence is really happening. So quad play certainly in a lot of European markets. You can see why that makes sense. You get customers who stay for longer, the more products they have. So I think that's accepted industry thinking. Challenge really for operators is the supply chain side. All these services look very different. Customer expectations are very different. Balancing an offer that has TV and mobile in it certainly very challenging. So the whole customer experience shifting there, if we look at what's happened in the States, already a consolidated market, for example, you've seen a lot of price plan innovation when it comes to family offers, for example. How telcos balance those customer needs across a wider product set while also engaged in product simplification, I think will be very challenging.
Andy, obviously, is someone who deals with a lot of telcos from the back end, the BSS side. If we're talking about mergers, how complicated is it? They talk about the problems they have with legacy systems as it stands. Does it not stand to reason, therefore, that these mergers are actually going to hold back customer experience transformation?
I mean, it's a fact of life, that you begin a project and then the project changes because the customer merges with another. And so that provides opportunities as well as threats. It, generally requires a review of the systems on both sides and figuring out what's the system to go forward. hopefully the decision that gets made is the one that's best for customer experience. So in the end, you may end up with more customers being delivered a better experience. So, but of course it causes or can cause hold-ups depending upon how effectively the merger is managed by the management of the customers.
Yeah. Philippe, obviously, I guess you've got a view on that, having with the EE side of things.
No, I don't want to comment about EE, but if I refer to what appears in Europe, at the end of the day, this merging is more, let's say, focusing to integration of fixed and mobile, definitely, but it's more and more capital demanding. So, we are talking about 4G, and it will be 5G and then 6G. And at the end of the day, there will be a very limited number of companies that will afford this transformation. We are talking about 15 billion euro investment for the next 4 years, and then again and again and again. So when I look at the third entrant or the fourth entrance, they will no more appear in the near future. There is no place for these guys. So I think the consolidation will be through the capital demanding aspect, and that's it. And then, of course, the difference between these remainers players will be about customer experience, because with an unlimited offer, there is no pricing differentiator. So you are back to innovation, and you are back to the quality. And believe me, in terms of quality, the telco network is far away from what we term these high quality standard. So there is still room and of maneuver.
Having helped a lot of companies going through the acquisition process, unfortunately, there's definitely a tendency for 18 months, 2 years for the company to be more internally focused when that happens. But I also agree, Philippe, that eventually we will end up with a few big organisations that really own the customer trust. They will then be able to put products and services out to a wider and wider audience. So it's got to happen, but it's a very difficult time for organisations, because naturally people think internally rather than externally.
And I think just to add to that, it's the big organization, and what we also see is the big galaxies growing even bigger. Going and penetrating into countries that perhaps they haven't been, before. If we see Telenor going into some countries, new regions, etc., and lots of the other galaxies as well. So that's also, going to enhance the whole, growth of the bigger companies. So it's, the convergence definitely on the one hand. But also just trying to grow into new areas, which is another factor. And I totally agree that the first probably year to 2 years, very focused internally. I mean, we've been involved in quite a few of these mega mergers, and are involved in some of them today. And you see that at the beginning, even if the intent is to try and enhance customer experience as part of the merger, etc., the fact of the matter is that everyone's more concentrated, first of all, on their own roles and where they're going to fit into the new organization, and big decisions on which systems to use. Do we actually merge the systems? When will we merge the systems, etc. So it takes time.
Philippe, I'll come to you. I mean, obviously, you've set out exactly what Orange is doing and how it intends to get there. I'm kind of interested. One of the things we didn't talk about in our survey is we always ask who's in charge of customer experience. Perhaps you could sort of talk about Orange. Who's in charge, and what level of influence do they have, right at the top, at board level?
You all know the story about customer experience. It works in the company only if the chairman is in charge of customer experience, and that's it. The rest is just, people who will engage the transformation, will support the transformation with the good enablers, with good practice, the maturity model, all this stuff. So at the Orange Group level, of course, this is the decision of the chairman to manage it. And then we've got affiliates in the country, and it's very important that the CEO is in charge of the customer experience transformation. So in order to do that, we put that in the bonus of the CEO as a big part of their bonus, but as well to track their performance regularly. But again, at the end of the day, if the CEO is not engaged, you can forget it. So that's the only answer. So if your chairman is completely in touch with customer experience, good deal. If it's not the case, you can find another job.
Adrian, what's your sort of experience of, you know, if you look at sort of the telco sector, I know you cover it from a wide area. Is it your experience that the CEOs are generally involved, or have they still got a lot more to do to get involved in the customer experience side of things?
I mean, certainly I've had some conversations with the Telco 3C, and I've heard directly from CEOs, and it is their number one agenda item. And I think in a survey that we've recently done, you know, customer centricity has been a key tenet of the industry for decades now, right? But customer experience really coming into focus, and I think it's predicated on this need to innovate. The fact that telcos are now looking at a world of connected objects, that they're targeting new industry verticals, you know, defining even new customer types, let alone providing a great experience, is a challenge and a focal point.
Andy or Uri, I mean, obviously, again, you work with telcos on a day-to-day basis. Is it your view that the C-suite really has got hold of this now, or not?
Yes, definitely the C-suite, but what we also see in some other service providers, and I don't know how it is in Orange specifically, but that the bonus, not just of the CEO is tied to customer experience, but it actually, part of the, compensation for many other people in the organizations. So it's kind of everyone's, responsibility, or everyone, looks at at these metrics.
I mean, Philip, I know you mentioned sort of getting employees engaged was a big part of the strategy. Is customer experience, is that sort of part of that, and to what degree is that part of their sort of packages?
It's 20% of the bonus of the top 1,000 managers of the companies, so which is not so bad. But it's not sufficient, of course. It's the way to engage the employees, and especially to engage the line management, is very, very important. And as I was mentioning before, we are used to manage the employees through the KPIs. So managers just manage the KPIs and don't scale it. The point is that we just want now to listen to the employees and to solve their issues. And I think the only recommendation I would get is just to be sure that the chairman every morning, of the Monday of the week, just to manage the one issue with the customer and one issue of the employee. And just to be sure that he is completely committed to solve the issue of the employee and the issue of the customer of the week. This is the only transformation you can get. And then you will get the trust of all the employees, all the companies, that there is a real transformation of the company to be focused to the customer. That's very simple things and simple signs, but I think this is the only way to demonstrate that it's not only a wording, it's not only a strategic plan, it's the way we want to manage internally the company.
Okay, well, let's move on to talk about some of the things we talked about at the start, which is around sort of like the millennials and these young people. I mean, I brought up that thing from the Forrester report saying that ignore them, they haven't got any money. Uri, you had some research talking about actually they will actually spend more, but they might not stay with you. You've made the SOSH brand. I know you said it was a sort of a retention kind of tool. I mean, how should you, at a quite sort of high level, what should be the strategy with millennials? Because so we've seen some sort of very sort of almost conflicting advice this morning and figures. What do you think is the real sort of approach that telcos should take? Carl, do you want to have a... Yeah.
I think customer segmentation is difficult, and we all know we can get caught out big time. I think with the digital piece, things are moving towards an intuitive digital interface. That means that it doesn't exclude or include any particular group. I think that's the way we need to look at certainly digital experience. That yes, you have your millennials, but you also have my mother, who's very good on an iPad and will spend a lot of money on an iPad. So I think it's very dangerous to be too segmented. If we make a good, intuitive, multi-channel that does, as someone said earlier, doesn't force us to go up to other channels, people will pick it up and they'll run with it. And that's the overall theme, I think.
I think I'd just like to add to that. I think that's absolutely right. We've seen in the past that you had to segment your customer base based on static information, what's the customer profile and demographics. But increasingly, the IT systems allow you to be cleverer than that and segment the customer base based on what you know about behavior and interests. And it doesn't matter if you're 60 years old or if you're 20 years old, if you're interested in a particular thing, be it surfing or be it, cooking, then, you can cater to those interests for a market segment which exists for a campaign. And, the IT systems that are now capable of doing that, where, in the relatively recent past they weren't. So I think, there's a lot of opportunity not to be so rigid about segmentation as we've had to be in the past.
I mean, Philippe, we talked obviously there about KPN ditching their brand. They said they could cater for millennials and young people within the overall group brand. I mean, do you see, obviously social is your thing there, I mean, do you see that being a long-term play, or do you see that possibly down the line that could disappear like the KPN youth brand?
No, today I don't know. I don't know. What is true is that we need this second brand to experiment digital interaction with these digital demanding customers, and I think that's a good success. We'll see what happens in the coming years. We don't know, but at the end of the day, it's very important to let's say, to answer these specific demands of the market. So I think for digital people, it's very important to get this kind of brand, and then that's it. My point is that about segmentation is that we used to get many segmentation within Orange for the last 15 years. It was never possible to execute it anyway. So at the end of the day, it was very difficult to execute in terms of marketing and in terms of sales. When a customer enters a shop, in which segment it is? Of course not. So I think that's why we have to be very pragmatic about segmentation. And so today we have this segment for digital people who just want to do it by themselves. Great. And so value for money, it's very clear. It's just accept to do it by themselves. We have this digital generation Y, which is another demanding because they just want to be part of the story. And then now we identify what we term the very demanding customers, which is something like the VIP or, let's say, high-value customers. Just people just want to get something different, something extra. And this is about 15% of the Orange customer base. And I will say, and that's it. So you say four segments and no more, and we can execute exactly according to this segment in terms of customer relationships and in terms of pricing. But again, that's today. So that's why SOSH exists. I don't know what it will be in the near future, but today it's not the question.
Okay. Adrian, what are your sort of thoughts on these sort of youth brands and targeting these young people? Is that something you think we're going to see more of, less of?
I think it's an interesting one. I mean, certainly, it's a very fluid environment in terms of, how operators classify their users. I mean, I'd agree with all the previous points that segmentation can become less rigid. We did a survey of, multi-play households or broadband households in the UK, and we found some sort of almost counterintuitive findings there. We had a segment called digital devotees. They're very affluent, they spend a lot of money, they've all got smart TVs. These guys churn very frequently. And it was actually the serious about sport category, those who wanted to pay for premium content, who actually showed a willingness to pay a premium for good customer support as well. So, I think there's certainly scope there to change. Again, we asked what kind of bundles would people have in 2-3 years' time. Not everyone's moving to a triple or a quad play. Some people are unbundling. Some people want best of breed. That's where sub-brands can play a really important role, whether in the youth market or otherwise.
So is it ultimately, is it a behavioural thing rather than an age thing that's how we should be looking at?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's what should lead you when you set your segmentation strategy. Obviously, most of the people who would fall into the certain behavior, there is a correlation with age in many of the cases, but it's not, a one-to-one relationship. And I think that, as with any other segmentation exercises, it's a matter of, balance between, on one hand, you want to do it as, personalized as possible. On the other hand, you want to do it simple and, not make it too complicated. automated, not for the agents who have to, you know, service and sell these products, definitely not for the customers. So it's kind of the balance between the simplicity and the personalization and the over-segmentation.
Some of this the customers will do for you. You mentioned communities. Communities are really good at building segments, if you want to call them segments. They will have certain behaviours. They'll either be very technically competent or very impulsive or very resident in what they do, or have a lot of issues they need solving. So that's a good way of actually segmenting, if you need to, your customer base. So the work on communities, I think, is very valuable.
We talked about the omni-channel idea. Philippe, again, I was interested, you know, we're talking about sort of, you know, capturing the classic things that telcos capture. You know, obviously they have your phone number, they've probably got, you know, your address in your email. Are you kind of moving towards trying to capture things like Twitter handles and Facebook profiles, for example? Is that something you're looking to do, or is that not possible, or what's your sort of view on that?
This is something that we try to, let's say, to cross-check between we've got a lot of internal information about the customer, the usage and all this stuff, and the interaction. So what we term the customer interaction management is something very important to develop. And we try to check this information with the external information we can get on Twitter and Facebook. So we've got some ongoing experiment to get all this information all together in order to enrich the profile of the customer. But this is ongoing today, so I can't display it.
Okay. Andy, what do you think? I mean, should telcos be, you know, at the point of signing up a customer, or even when they've got an existing customer, should they be really trying to get hold of this extra kind of information, if you like to, if they want to deliver, you know, this sort of omni-channel, you know, 360 type of experience?
Yes, I think it's early days, but you know, there are lots of situations. So you know, most people would you know, log into a website, you know, with a social ID, for, you know, scan a barcode with WeChat, you log into the website. So at that point, the website knows you by your WeChat ID, not by your existing, you know, customer account ID. And you might put things in your shopping basket. You might have a lot of interaction there, which is quite separate from what the service provider knows about you in its regular database. So, you know, at some point, if it becomes clear that, you know, these two identities are the same person, it makes sense to merge all of that interaction history, merge a shopping basket, and so on, so that, you know, then you can have a much more sensible dialogue with the customer rather than having, you know, two separate ones. And, you know, so the technology to do that's available, but of course it's relatively new and it has to be implemented and experimented with. And I think, you know, our experience is that operators are very interested in that topic, but are still making progress, just like Orange.
So I definitely agree that you know, the service provider, if it can collect you know, additional information like the user ID, the Facebook or Twitter or whatever, then it definitely, you know, makes sense, because then you have more information. I think that you know, leads us to kind of the second question is, what would the service provider do with this information? Because we see many cases where, you know, a service provider has so much information and just doesn't really know how to organize it, how to analyze it, how to get, you know, the right conclusions out of it. So it's one question of getting the information, but then maybe the more important question is, what do you actually do with it? How do you analyze it, and how do you act, you know, upon it?
That's a really interesting question, because from a customer perspective, do they want you to have it or not? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And that comes down to what you were saying, is what you do with it, and it's the intent behind what you do with it that's important. So once you have different contacts information, you have to be very careful your next move. Because if your next move is to try and sell somebody, push lots of products at them, that's going to end badly. So intent in what you do with that is the next stage.
And if I may, I think the only strong use case we've got to get it to do that is to improve the efficiency of the campaign management. So this is you know, it's very expensive. And so the only very good use case we've got is that we can improve dramatically the return of investment of the campaign management when we've got the good profile of the customers and the good usage profile and churn profile and all this stuff.
Right. So the conversion rates of the campaigns?
Conversion rates of the campaign, yeah.
Right.
Philippe, again, how important is it for Orange to try and offer something, a customer experience that's different to your competitors? Is that a key point that you're thinking about, how to differentiate your customer experience? Or is it purely just about we've just got to do the best that we can do and focus on our customers? Or how important is that sort of point of differentiation for you?
So the main differentiators we want to push is the quality of the network and the quality of the customer relationship, and that's it. That's 2 points. And so coming back to the basics, we just want to correctly manage the customer in a very friendly customer interaction, and we want to provide the best network, which is not the best, but what we term the zero defect network, which is something completely different. So this is the term. And we consider that this is in a very price, let's say, battle environment. I think we consider that we have to come back to the basics about the quality of network and the quality of the relationship.
I'm going to sort of ask you guys to sum up, if I may. I think what we'd kind of like to do is maybe if you think about a key takeaway from today that perhaps that the operators and the telcos could think about. As we said, Adrian, you said customer experience clearly still top of mind, really kind of number one or number two priority at all these operators. What would you sort of say is sort of a key takeaway as we look ahead?
Well, I think, there's a tendency in the telco industry to focus on those, real pure disruptors, if you like. But I think if you look at other industry sectors, granted there are differing characteristics there, but there are a lot of other established players in other industries who have really overhauled their customer experience tremendously. And I think there's scope for telcos to do just the same.
Okay, great. Andy?
Yeah, I mean, Asia Info tends to be involved in very large-scale IT transformation projects, and nobody does one of those for fun. There has to be a very important driver. And customer experience is really one of the three key things which drives our business. It's very important. The other two really are cost reduction in the IT environment and creating new business models, adding value to partners in the digital world, for instance. But customer experience is one of the three key things which is continuing to drive our market and will do so for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Philip, I want to leave you to the end. Carl?
Okay, we caught me out there. I was waiting. Okay, so I think the focus on what digital can do for us, in as much as how much we can share information, how we can share knowledge, how we can use communities. If you look at the best of the others, what you'll find is they're focused very much on people and ends up as people experience. Best probably is that is First Direct. They're ahead of people experience probably 5-6 years ago. If you focus on the people, guess what? Everything falls into place. That's what I would say.
Uri?
So I think that definitely customer experience is the should be or is or will be, continue being the main differentiator between service providers. I mean, as we talked about before, in terms of the core services, these are being offered today by some other companies, other types of companies, not the traditional service providers. The devices today are not really only offered by the service providers. Content is not being offered only by service providers. So really what's left is, the network and the customer experience. And that's where communication service providers can really differentiate themselves. And as we said, it needs to be a sustainable differentiator. So it's, moving forward as well.
Okay. Philippe, I'll leave the last word to you, if I may. You've outlined what Orange is really sort of doing. You've said customer experience is kind of number one. What would be kind of like the message you would give to your peers, I guess, would be the final thing on this?
I would say that customer experience is listening and responding attitude. So versus employees and customers. So I think that's why it's so important and difficult to manage within the company. And the second point is that digital is the real breakthrough of the market we should leverage for this customer experience. Because digital is a way to make it simpler for the customer and so to transform your company, to simplify the process. And so to engage all the employees in another way to deliver the process and the promise to the customer. So I think it's a long way transformation. Like digital is not a big revolution, it's a step-by-step evolution. And so customer experience is the same, let's say, attitude and the same speed of transformation. So that's why.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'd like to say thank you to all our panel for their thoughts and insights today. Thank you all very much.